The Green Bay Packers went to Las Vegas as underdogs. I said I didn't understand it. I understand it now. This Green Bay Packers team just isn't going to be consistent. They are who we thought they were in a lot of ways, a young team trying to figure it out. Still, that's not an excuse for what we saw on Monday night. Unable to move the ball against a bad defense, unable to stop the run against a bad offense. It was just bad. And maybe so are the Packers.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would still love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone that makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. If you got some last-minute tickets to the Packers-Raiders game, you were not alone. A lot of Packer fans in Las Vegas for this one. It did not feel like a road game by any means, but the Packers played like it was a road game. They played like this was the black hole of old. Jordan Love had his worst game as a professional. It is as bad as I've seen him play maybe ever, frankly. And there's a laundry list of reasons for that. Part of it is on Love, and we have to start there. There have been times when he can stand and deliver, because he can make all these arm angle throws, and he can make throws on the run, and he can sling the ball sidearm and do all these cool things. And he made a great play on third down, converted to third down, because he slung the ball sidearm around Max Crosby to convert on third down. He can do that kind of stuff. But there are times when you just need to be able to set your feet and throw. There was the play to A.J. Dillon in the fourth quarter where they have the screen set up. It's the throwback screen, the one he threw to Aaron Jones. And he threw a fadeaway jumper on that one, but he threw a perfect pass. This was a fadeaway jumper to the dirt. He had time to stop and at least half set and throw the ball back across his body, make an accurate throw. The decision on the first interception was brutal. Even if he hadn't been looking right at the linebacker, which, why are you not looking right at the conflict defender on one of those RPOs? You couldn't see the receiver. Like the end zone view showed he could not see the receiver. And it was because there was a swarm of black jerseys around him. It's just a bad decision. And some of this stuff feels predetermined. Now, I was talking to a league source during the game who said the way that Matt LaFleur coaches that concept, it was strike, is he expects that to basically always be open. You almost don't have to read it. When you call it, it's just fire and throw. You expect your guys to be right, and you expect the coverage to be wrong. That's probably not going to work. You have to let Jordan Love play a little bit. Now, the second interception, Christian Watson gets bumped off his spot on a comeback. He was slow out of his break, which allowed Marcus Peters to be the one breaking back to the quarterback. It turns into a tip ball. Unfortunate. It's a force into coverage, but if Christian Watson runs a good route and comes back to the ball, it's not a pick. And on the last one, I thought he had time to set his feet a little bit, get a little more on that throw. It's 3rd and 10. If you throw it out of the back of the end zone, fine, but you have to give Christian Watson an opportunity to go up and get it. Now, we can't avoid, though, the Matt LaFleur part of this either, because they come out and, in a way, did what I asked for on the first drive. More balance. They were able to play with balance because they got the run game going. Some simple throws early on, quick out, play action, tight end screen that worked. It is like what we've been asking for all year. And then they overcorrected in the run game. They didn't let Love spread it out and just find guys, which has worked at the end of in the second halves of these games. The Packers offense is night and day in the third quarter. They're the best offense in the league in the third quarter. But beyond that, they can't get anything else going. And part of that is on Matt LaFleur to find ways to get these guys ready to go from the jump. And he just hasn't. I think Matt LaFleur is a really good coach. I think he is a really good schemer of offense. And I think generally he has a way of getting his guys to be focused in big games. This did not feel like a big game at all. They didn't really have anything seemingly special for this one. I just don't know how to explain that in the third quarter they can look as good as they looked, and in the first half not be able to do anything. Jordan Love throwing the ball to the wrong team. Receivers not open. I mean, receivers not open. This is a terrible Raiders defense. A terrible Raiders defense. And we'll look back and we'll watch the tape. And when we watched the Lions game, we saw early in that game, there were some guys open. Jordan Love had opportunities to throw it and didn't. That's got to change. That's got to change. When we look back at this tape, it can't be the same thing. Now, from what we saw and the replays we saw, from what I saw, there were not guys running open, running free. I don't know why Jaden Reed wasn't a bigger part of the game plan here. I don't know why you don't find opportunities to get Christian Watson the ball underneath. I don't know why everything has to be vertical. And then there are times when you just have an offense where guys are in the wrong spots. Troy Aikman pointed it out on the final drive. You've got a situation where you've got three guys within 5 yards of each other in the middle of the field. That's not the concept anyone is running. That's not the play call. And there is a part of this where you go, okay, I bought into, and I actually liked the idea of having a young group that's going to go and grow together. I liked that idea. But when you have consistent mental mistakes from guys, being in the wrong place, running the wrong routes, missed execution up front, Jordan Love is going to have mistakes. But this is why you have a veteran or two out there who you just know on 3rd and 8 is going to run the right route. And even if he's not going to break wide open, he's going to make the right play 9 times out of 10. That's where you start to go, this experiment, how is it going? I would love to have Matt LaFleur on, about a liter of bourbon. I don't think he could. I think both of us would be in a rough shape after that. But I'd like to find out the truth about where he thinks this team stands right now. Do they really have runway? How much of this is on him? How much of this does he think is on him? How much of this is guys not being in the right positions with routes and those details? 2 key drops on that last drive where Jordan Love is not having to face 3rd and 10 if Luke Musgrave just catches a pipe shot, if Romeo Doubs just catches the sideline shot. Luke Musgrave has a first down, just drops it. Now it's 3rd and 10. So this offense was poorly coached tonight, poorly executed, and your quarterback played horribly against a really bad defense. I mean, Jordan Love played better. There were more flashes of high-level quarterback play against the Chiefs in his first NFL start than we saw last night. And that just can't happen. Like, this comes after I said on Friday and have been saying all weekend, I think I'd be fine if the Packers gave Jordan Love a Daniel Jones caliber contract. Well, that was assuming he maintained the level of play he had. That's not tonight. That's not what we saw. What we saw tonight is a guy who has a quarterback rating of 32.2. If you just spike it every play, you have a higher quarterback rating. And this was, as is being pointed out in the chat, the game that they played with 11 days to prepare. Nothing special. Nothing. There were times when they got a little too cute with some of the play calls. And part of this is they don't have anything that they major in. They don't have anything that they can go to. On 3rd and 6, what do they call? On 1st and 10 on a drive where you need to get the drive going, what do they call? We knew what the answer was when they had Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. And you just knew at some point Aaron Rodgers was going to make a play. Now, last year, that started to run out. Some of that magic. That's where you need your coach to come in. That's where you need your coach to come in and give your players an opportunity to succeed. And your players have to do better with those opportunities. We can't forget about the defense. Plenty to talk about with what is going on with this defense. We are going to get to that in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Do you need last-minute tickets? Not just to games. We're talking about comedy shows, music. Game Time gives you flash deals. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area with the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protected, and job loss protection. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to get when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Football season here in Locked On is kicking off our coverage with Locked On NFL Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. East on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Host Anitra Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs will break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and more. Plus, get the in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts, that's me, across the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff live every Friday at 2 p.m. East and on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Now, when you look at the final numbers, the Packers gave up 17 points, including a field goal off an interception where you have a quick change. The Packers actually got a stop in that case. They only allowed 4.4 yards per play. Only gave up 183 passing yards. Now the rushing, 96 net yards, but only gave up 3.3 yards per play on the ground. And they got a big turnover from Rudy Ford that the Packers turned into a touchdown. I can't blame the defense for what happened. I just can't. It's not the defense's fault. That said, there's still too many times where you have on the first touchdown, Lucas Van Ness is supposed to drop in coverage, and you have Jacoby Myers kind of inside-outed. You have Lucas Van Ness dropping, and then you have Rudy Ford in behind. If Lucas Van Ness just drops and doesn't try and do the feint and then into the drop, and I don't know if that's part of what he's coached to do or not, or if he just forgot or what happened. But it was not the call I would have made schematically to just let the slot run free to the end zone when your safety has his heels on the white of the goal line. It's just not what I would have done. There were times when the Packers had Preston Smith out over Davante Adams when he was in the slot, but they had a safety then over top. And there was one play where where Jimmy Garoppolo had to try and manufacture something because the Packers had it defended perfectly. Preston Smith jammed Davante Adams. Davante wanted to come back inside. They passed it off beautifully, and Jimmy G had nowhere to go with the ball. There were times when they had Davante under wraps, and then there were times when Preston Smith was also out there and having to drop in coverage and actually try and run with him. That's just bad plans. It's just a bad plan. Like, yes, it would be nice to have Eric Stokes out there instead of Keyshawn Nixon. Keyshawn Nixon didn't play great. And yes, at some point, you don't have DeAndre Campbell. I didn't think McDuffie played bad in this game. You lose Quay Walker too. That's not the reason that you're talking about this defense right now. You lose Darnell Savage. That wasn't the reason why they lost. The injuries, the players that were out there, that was not the reason why they lost. The defense in general, not the reason why they lost. But there's still too much weird stuff going on. They gave the Raiders pretty much exactly what they wanted. Jimmy Garoppolo goes 22 of 31. All they want to do, we talked about this yesterday. Don't let a team that cannot create explosive plays dink and dunk you down the field. It's what they want to do. Don't let them do it. And they did a 14 play, 62 yards only. 14 play, 62 yards, 8.5 minutes in the first half to go up 7-3. Unbelievable. The other touchdown drive, a 10 play, 75-yard touchdown drive. And frankly, the Packers are lucky that it was only 13-17. Daniel Carlson missed a pair of field goals, or this is a 10-point game. It just, the approach is consistently not there. And they defended the run in general pretty well. Now, they gave up more explosive plays on Monday night than the Raiders had rushing all season. They also, Jordan Love threw more interceptions on Monday night than the Raiders had all season. In fact, by a factor of 3. They had 1 interception all season. Jordan Love throws 3. But defensively, there are too many times when you just don't know what the plan is supposed to be. What are you trying to accomplish? It just doesn't make any sense. And so I don't expect it to change. It's not going to change. But at some point, this is a Matt LaFleur problem. Because Matt LaFleur said, coming out of the Lions game, I know we want to live in this two-shell world, but sometimes we have to get out of it. And then on 3rd and 5 in plus territory, you're backed up in your own end. You're playing too deep on 3rd and 5, and you give a free release with 8 yards of cushion. What is that? What is that? And again, this is a lot like 2021, where you go, there were 10 plays I can pick out where I'm going, that's dumb, don't do that. And then you look up at the end of the game and the Raiders averaged 4.4 yards per play. Ultimately, I thought the Raiders were going to score 17. My prediction was that they were going to score 17 to 20 points. I thought they would do that. They did. So, and that wasn't really about the Raiders offense or the Packers defense. It just sort of felt like the right give and take. They've got some skill talent for sure. Jimmy Garoppolo is a totally fine quarterback. And the Packers defense is not great. So 17 points. This game is not about the defensive failings, but it is another example of when you look around going, what was this supposed to be? What was the plan here? And that's the part that I just don't get. I just don't get. I don't understand it. They're not going to make a change. They're not. So I don't know what you're supposed to expect here because they said it was going to be different. Russell Douglas said it was going to be different, swore up and down. Matt LaFleur, Kenny Clark swore up and down it was going to be different. It's going to be different. Guess what? It's not different. And that leads us to an uncomfortable and unfortunate place. And that is wondering if playing a nip and tuck game with a bad team means that the Packers are also, in fact, a bad team. We're going to close the show with a very uplifting thought right after this. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. I said I didn't understand this line. I also said on Twitter, that's a red flag. It went from Packers -1 to Raiders +2.5. Look, they knew. They knew. Cost me a lot of money. They knew. Right now, new customers can get a $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options. Spread, player props, over-unders, same game parlays. That's a lot of fun too. I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to sweat out the Packers over 7.5 wins. But here we are. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Packer fans, tomorrow on the show, Joe Thomas is on the program. Maybe he can offer a little bit of hope. We're going to talk about offensive line play, David Bakhtiari's injury. Joe Thomas went through a somewhat similar situation with his knee, and it's I think he's going to offer some great insight. Of course, he's a Hall of Famer too, so that helps. I don't know what to make of this Packers team because I saw what they did in the second half against the Bears. And I go, that team looks really good. And the Bears, they still absolutely stink. The Bears fans are in the comments here trying to brag. I don't know why. I don't know why. They are still, if the season ended today, the second worst team in the league by record. So I don't know exactly what they're bragging about, but we'll let them brag for now. It's funny, but whatever. I see them in the third quarter against Atlanta, the fourth quarter against the Saints. The offense in the second half versus the Lions. And I go, there's so much talent here. There's so much ability. And there's no consistency. And one of the things we talked about with the Falcons game was that was not on the offense. That was not on the young players. It was on the defense that gave up a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter. They really should have, by all rights, a game that they dominated really for 3 quarters, won that game. But you could also make the case they should not have won the Saints game. And they did. They played well enough to do it. And we've seen those flashes. We've seen those flashes. I thought that would be enough with Matt LaFleur calling plays. The defense with the talent that they have, the pass rush that they would bring to bear in these games, the pass defense in general with the cornerbacks, Jair Alexander once again out there making business decisions in the run game. I thought the defense would be better than it was last season. Lucas Van Ness comes in, has not made an impact outside of winning in week 1 a bunch against a Bears offensive line that in retrospect is better than we realized. But they have not gotten high-level play from Devondre Campbell. Devontae Wyatt, who they needed to take a step forward, has not. In pure pass rushing situations, he can still affect the game. Kenny Clark makes 1 or 2 splash plays every game in the first quarter, and then we don't hear from him again. When you lose to a bad team, And I would say to this point, the Packers had not done that. I don't think the Falcons are a bad team. I don't think they're a good team. I think they're in the mushy middle. There's a lot of teams in the mushy middle, especially in the NFC. And Desmond Ridder looked great, by the way, looked great on Sunday. But they beat the Bears, a bad team. They beat the Saints, a solid team. The Saints just beat the brakes off the Patriots. They came back and beat a solid team at home. They lost to a Lions team that looks like the second or third best team in the NFC. Made that a game in the second half, but we're never really in that one. But this was a game that if they're just a decent team, by the numbers, DVOA has them right in the middle of the pack, 15th. But they had the Raiders, 28th? The Raiders were the bad team. But the Packers played like another bad team on Monday. So are they? Are they? They played like one. Are they? Right now, I don't know what else you can say other than they're just not a very good football team right now. They have the potential to be very good. They have the talent, especially offensively, to be really good. I don't know what is going to change defensively this year while Joe Barry is still the coordinator. They have some clear holes in the back end at safety, but that should not be as damning as it has been for this team. I still like a lot of the core talent here. They're not a good team. Now, I don't think they've quit or anything like that. But that is what I'm now looking at and keeping my eye on. How does this young team stay together? How do they coalesce around this? I thought, Jaden Reed after the loss had a great thing to say. Let's have this, build us, not break us. They go out and they get a win. And they go out and they lose, and now they've lost a bad game. They have a bye week to get some things figured out. And they have to play a bad Broncos team. A bad Broncos team. Are you a bad team too, Green Bay? The Bears just, should have won. Should have beat the Broncos. This was a defense, Jordan Love, to take advantage of. They couldn't. Matt LaFleur, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave. And I'm not going to say anything about, someone like Christian Watson right now because I think he's not 100%. But I didn't think the effort was where it needed to be on Monday night. He doesn't look 100% healthy either. But if you're going to be a number one, you got to beat washed Marcus Peters in coverage. You got to beat Amik Robertson in coverage. You got to go up and fight for these balls in the air. Romeo Doubs, if you're a legit number two, you can't get clamped down by this secondary. The secondary stinks. They don't even have their best corner is hurt. This is an embarrassing performance by a team that I don't think is embarrassing. But it was an embarrassing performance. We've seen them play better. I think they will play better. But I do think the clock is ticking. I have said I've seen enough from Jordan Love to think that he's not going to be a bad quarterback. This is the kind of game he had avoided. Can't have many more of these. Can't have many more of these. And there needs to be a couple of 300-yard, 4-touchdown games sprinkled in here as well. And I don't mean the one Justin Fields had on Thursday where DJ Moore has 85% of all the yards and it's all after the catch. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about go out and sling the rock around the yard and make a bunch of plays. That's the stuff we have to see consistently with this team. The defense, I don't expect to change. I expected more from this offense. And if we don't see it, then we have to start asking questions about Jordan Love, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Matt LaFleur has to be added to that list at some point here soon. So these guys are on notice. All of them are on notice that this is an unacceptable level of play. They got their brains beat in by Detroit and they came out and they responded this way. That's not great. That's not great. They need to find themselves in the in the bye week. And if they don't, this is going to get ugly fast. They have the talent to turn this around, but they have to actually go do it. And we'll see if they can actually get it done. All right, back tomorrow. Joe Thomas, Lily Zhao, a belated Zhao you doing this week with the Monday night game. That'll be on Thursday, and then another interview coming on Friday to round out the bye week. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live, I hope you've had a drink for all of this. Come hang out with us on our Locked On Packers YouTube page so you can stay Locked On Packers.